And to begin with a look at the front page of the People Daily, if we could have that up, and it says Showdown Tuesday. Now, over 40 legislators have proposed amendments to the finance bill, even as young Kenyans vow to continue the anti-Ruto protests that began last week. And so the anti-protest organizers have billed Tuesday, day 2 or the second round of Occupy Parliament protests as one of the biggest protests in the Reject Finance Bill movement. That's what's making headlines on the front page of the People Daily. But let's also take a look at what's making headlines on the front page of the Daily Nation. On the front page there says, "Listen to youth, church tells state." It was an interesting weekend, especially on social media, seeing videos of young Kenyans taking to the pulpit and altars in church and calling their leaders accountable, to account really, asking them what their stand is on the finance bill of 2024 and essentially taking charge of their governance altogether. And so we'll be taking a look at that debate as well. But on the front page of the Daily Nation is a picture of Kenyans donating blood in support of anti-finance bill demonstrators. And this happened at the Sikh Union in Nairobi over the weekend. And remember, the Dr. Austin Odhiambo there, famously known as Japrado on X, was among the organizers of this blood drive at the Sikh Union. He was later allegedly abducted by people suspected to be police officers and was later released last night following uproar, massive uproar on social media. And a look at the Standard newspaper as well shows that the revolt continues. Now, MPs gather to debate that bill tomorrow, even as Kenyans plan an entire week of Occupy Parliament protests, essentially. We'll be discussing that in a lot more detail as well. Now, in studio with us for this newspaper review, we have Muhia Robert, who is a communications specialist with the Eastern Africa Editors Society. Muhia, good morning, and thank you for being with us on New Dawn.
Good morning.
We also have next to him Nimo Sheikh, who is a youth leader. Nimo, good morning. Thank you so much for joining us in New Dawn.
Good morning.
And we also have Benjamin Wandalo. Benjamin Wandalo is part of the marketing and public relations team at the UDA party. Benjamin, good morning.
Good morning.
And thank you for joining us. An interesting morning to discuss what's making headlines on the dailies this morning. So, on the front page of the People Daily is that Showdown Tuesday. And Muhia, as it stands, we have 7 days of an itinerary that covers 7 days for anti-finance bill protesters, which begins today. What's been happening, or what will be happening in the anti-finance protest bills today?
We've been having, in the anti-protest program, it has 7 days of rage. As you can see, over the weekends, there was a beehive of activities where Gen Z started by occupying the churches. Today, we are still meeting about the young people who are murdered, that is Rex. And tomorrow, protest. It's a whole program anyway, and I'm sure everyone has seen it out there. Yeah.
Right, and it's an interesting one. The Standard front page there says the revolt continues. And Nimo, so far we saw during the Occupy Churches bit of the protest, and we've seen President William Ruto now say that he is willing to have a conversation with the youth in this protest. He's willing to listen to their grievances. What does that say to you? Do you read some sort of success in the anti-finance bill protests?
So thank you so much for having me. And if I am honest, brutally honest, I think the government is playing reverse psychology with a young generation, with Gen Z who are out there fighting for the injustices that are happening in this country. I mean, young people coming out is a way of showing their democratic rights. And I feel like the government is playing reverse psychology because I have seen clips where the president and other leaders say the Gen Z are tribalists, they're doing well, it's good that they are coming out, but after all, are they willing? Are they willing to keep amending the financial bill? That's the main point we are supposed to focus.
All right, and so the push then is reject finance bill in totality, but we're at a very crucial stage in the finance bill itself, and we'll be getting to that. But Benjamin, you represent the UDA party as a young person, so you essentially represent the youth in the UDA party. And while President William Ruto yesterday essentially expressed optimism to listen to the grievances of the youth in these demonstrations, there's a lot of negative talk from state officials within the Kenya Kwanza government. I'll take case in point a tweet by David Ndi, who referred to the anti-finance bill protesters as cool kids protesting the finance bill but are clueless. Calls them children of the plunderers who've bankrupted the state, the children of entrepreneurs that he's been fighting. We've had members of parliament call them babies and say babies cannot be telling us how to run this country. Let them start these protests in our constituency and they will see that we really have a government. And when you have this kind of talk at this stage of the protests, what are you saying to Kenyans?
First of all, I want to thank you so much for having me here. I think for the first time in the history of our country, we are seeing protests being carried out in our country that are based on issue. And that is a very, very commendable step in the right direction. We cannot in entirety dismiss these people protesting because they are not kids. They are adult Kenyans of sound mind, and they are raising issues, and they're calling up the government and telling the government, look here, this is where we feel uncomfortable. This is what we feel cannot work for us. We feel we are being pushed to do this and this and this. And that is the best thing our country has ever seen. We must commend these young people. However, in commending them, as we raise these issues, as we protest, as we call out the government, we must again call ourselves back and ask ourselves, what do we want to achieve? To what end? Because somehow, every revolution must have an end, must have a target, must have an objective. Is the objective to make lives better in Kenya, and how so? So I think we cannot dismiss them. I want to also believe that the sentiments of anyone dismissing these people, these young people who are protesting out there, our colleague young people protesting, nobody should dismiss them because they are not being paid. This is a very organic group that has come out protesting, calling the government to do something for them, and it is based on issues. I think that is something we must commend ourselves. Our democratic space has really, really, really grown.
And it's interesting to see. Nimo, you had something to add on the comments being spewed by leaders on the Gen Z protests.
The thing is, it's true that this is the only generation whereby they have not gone to the streets because politician so and so has paid them to do ABCD. They're actually fighting for their own rights. And I feel like the parents of this Gen Z, the debts that they are getting into, it's the generation, the Gen Z and the Alpha who are going to be paying for those debts in the future. So my main agenda here is, yes, we have seen young people come out, but why are young people getting kidnapped for protesting? Why are they getting shot for protesting? Why is the majority leader of this National Assembly calling young people lazy, and these young people that they came to town with Ubers and having pizza? When they have pizza, they're going to pay for taxes. Am I right? When they're coming with their Uber, it shows a sense of responsibility that they're not seeking for you to give them transport. And actually, it shows that these young people that are protesting are not neither. It's not about riches or poverty or who is a hustler or who is a dynasty and who is from tribe so and so. If this was happening in Northeastern today, it will be a terror group, honestly. But these are young people coming from all over, you understand? So for a majority leader of this nation, of this National Assembly to come out and say that wamekuja kupiga picha ya TikTok and wako na iPhone. Hizi iPhone ndio zimelipa taxes. na hizi pizza wanakula wanalipa tax bado. Kwa hiyo we demand some sense of respect.
All right, and that's an interesting point. Muhia, there are those who say that then there are elements that the government has missed in this protest altogether. The fact that it's not just the, you know, the demographic expected to be out in the streets protesting. It is a demographic that is beyond social barriers, is beyond tribal barriers. But let's talk about the use of social media. And there's a story on page 3 of the Nation newspaper there saying policing the police. So Gen Z have applied effective methods of fixing rogue elements in the wake of this protest. And we'll be getting to the issues that Benjamin asks, because what is the end game for these Gen Z protests? But over the weekend, we had a nearly 6-hour space on X, titled "Good Morning Kenya, Where is Crazy Nairobian?" And this, Nemo asks, why are activists and Kenyans speaking out being abducted by people believed to be authorities, police authorities? And so this 6-hour space saw over 60,000 Kenyans log on to listen and air their views. And this made headlines because, those organizing several things, including blood donations, were later picked up by police. Are you concerned about the current abductions?
I am very concerned about the current abductions. And first I must commend those young people who conducted that Twitter space. I think in Kenya we've never had such a record. And this goes a lot to tell the government that youth are really concerned about politics and their space in politics, and their space also in the state of affairs. I think for the longest time in Kenya, youths have been sidelined when it comes to their voices, when they want to talk about anything and utter their grievances. And I think this is about the time that the government should listen to the youth. Having in mind that the new generation, that is Gen Z and the millennials and the alphas, are the ones who are going to vote in 2027. And I'm so sure when it comes to politics in 2027, there'll be a big shift. And this is why. Now, for the past years, we've had parents having influence to the young people, telling them that you're supposed to vote for this person. But this time, we've seen a shift where the youths are speaking out and all elder people are listening. And I think the government should follow that and also listen to the youth. I think the demands here are very clear. Reject that bill, take it back to the parliament, come back with another bill, and we might consider it. That is so simple. I don't know why there is that back and forth between the youth and the government. The demands are so simple.
All right.
I think the moment we achieve that rejection, they take back the finance bill, come back with another one that favors people. And I believe right now, if you can see what is happening on social media, I think that is enough public participation. It's about time we also move and start considering these new technologies. That is the AI, the social media. Those are the things, those are the platforms that we are supposed to use when it comes to public participation. For example, in that Twitter space, we were able to see that it had over 60,000 people.
Right.
If it has 60,000 people, that is a quantifiable thing that you can use to say over 60,000 people came and gave us these grievances. But if we talk about the public participation that was done in this bill, how can we quantify it that these people came out and gave their views on the bill? So I think it's about time we start also moving to the new technology and adapting to it.
All right, absolutely. And you take a look at page 3 of the paper there, that article on policing the police and the methods that the youth used even to identify rogue police officers during the protests, including the alleged killer of the late Rex Kanyike Masai. And it's interesting that the public participation witnessed even on the X spaces seemed to sort of include more Kenyans and the public participation carried out on the ground, as Muhia says. But Nimo, when it comes to the issues, the call is to reject the finance bill in totality. But when we began, you said you wanted to see amendments. in this finance bill. This is the stage where the the finance bill is currently, the committee of the whole house, which essentially turns the entire parliament into a committee where they can amend issues and clauses or pass them as is. So let's begin. Are we looking to amend or reject in totality in this protest?
Okay, let me begin by saying a beggar has no choice. It seems like the young generation, the Gen Z, are the ones begging the government, you know, to listen to them. And I feel like, of course, we are rejecting this bill in totality. But if it reaches a point where we have seen members of parliament in parliament vote for this specific bill, even as the constituents are rejecting it. So that means there is corruption going on in parliament itself. So there might be a chance where this bill will go through. So if that happens, what is our options? You understand? So we need this bill to be in favor of these young people. We need this bill to favor the people who are demanding the taxes not to be increased. And we have no control over these members of parliament. We have seen MPs like Babu Owino and Gitonga Mukunji and Umolker Harun vote against and stand firmly with these young people. But there is the majority where they cannot even vote a no because they are pro-government. They cannot vote a no because they are afraid of their boss. So I think this is where the problem comes from. So we reject the bill in totality. But if there is a chance where we can amend, because we don't want this bill to go through the way it is, then we have no choice as young people. All
right, and we'll be giving a bit more context into where the bill currently is and what will be happening at the committee stage. But Wandalo, the Juja Member of Parliament, George Koimbure, made outrageous allegations over the weekend that legislators were offered about 2 million shillings in exchange for voting yes for the finance bill, which advanced to the second reading Thursday. And you clearly state that the cries of the youth in the anti-finance bill protesters must be listened to. And so when Nimo says members of Parliament voted yes for the finance bill, when there was protests happening currently in their constituency rejecting the finance bill, how credible are allegations, you know, that there's been bribes for the finance bill to pass, that this is bigger than the cries of the people, that it must pass and it's been orchestrated on a level beyond, you know, that Kenyans do not understand?
First off, probably before what my colleague spoke about gets swallowed up, it's important for us Kenyans to candidly interrogate this finance bill.
Right.
In as much as we have very many people calling for the reject of the finance bill, I've picked out one aspect in the finance bill, one proposal in the finance bill, where we are having a proposal to have 46,000 JSS teachers, all the JSS teachers, 46,000 of them,
right,
employed on permanent and pensionable basis in this financial year. On top of the 46,000, again, the same bill is suggesting that we have 26,000 more teachers to be taken up into PNP terms to help curb the teacher-pupil ratio in schools.
Right.
Okay? That makes a total of around 66,000 teachers. Keeping in mind last year alone, the government employed 54,000 teachers. That's a total of 110,000 teachers employed in a span of 2 years by President William Ruto's government. The 46,000 JSS teachers, most of them are fresh graduates. The Gen Z people who are out of college, jobless, saying, look here, we are unemployed, we want jobs, we feel you're overtaxing us. How can that be a bad thing to reject the entire bill? You know, I believe I would want to agree with my colleague Nimo here, that if we have certain elements of the bill that do not sit down well with Kenyans, they should be amended. But you cannot say reject in entirety. It would be so bad for us to throw away the baby with the bathwater, because we have very many aspects of that bill that sit down so well and speak properly well with the Kenyans, like this one here that targets to employ 46,000 JSS teachers into PNP terms. Having said that, back to your question on the allegations by the MP. you realize that Article 1 of our Constitution speaks on the sovereignty of the people. And the people can practice their power directly on the ballot when they are choosing the members of parliament, the senators, the women rep, the governors, directly. And then indirectly, after trusting those leaders by choosing them, because they felt those leaders would best represent their interests in parliament, where legislation takes place, where budgeting takes place, where all these laws are made and amended, now these MPs should be trusted to do the job. I want to believe whatever it is that the MP spoke about were his own personal sentiments. They're not quantifiable because this government has a constitution that is working. We have got very many independent institutions that are tasked with the responsibility of tracking corruption, graft, plan of resources, and if at any point any public officer, be it an elected leader, be it an appointed leader, is found to be culpable of engaging in corrupt activities, then I want to believe our democracy has grown so much. Yeah. We've seen people being taken to court and charged.
You say MPs should be trusted to do their job. What is their job?
Legislation, budgeting, whatever it is happening in parliament at the moment, that is what these MPs are supposed to be doing, interrogating this bill.
And the core of that is representation.
Exactly.
Of the people who elected them.
Exactly.
What do you make of the videos we've seen, several, including one of Lamu, where we had the member of parliament get resistance or receive resistance at a function she was at, and when it was a women function, and when the women resisted and asked questions, she literally threw her hand up in the air and said, "Atakija next week, why don't I vote yes?" Now, of course, members of parliament can react to situations however they wish, but in that role of representation, are we seeing members of parliament really doing their job, especially those getting resistance for supporting this finance bill?
I want to believe what we are seeing happening to the members of parliament, the public lynching of members of parliament who voted yes and those who voted no, probably from whichever faction. That public lynching is what I would say a classic case of changing rules of the game in the middle of the game. I gave you a job. Go do the job. You are in the middle of doing that job and I'm behind you yelling in your ears, "Hey, you're doing the wrong thing. Hey, not this way. I want it this way." Why can't you give me time? You gave me the job, you trusted me with the job, you felt I was best suited to do this job. Let me do it. If these members of parliament, because on Tuesday, tomorrow, the bill is going to the whole house, okay? They're not going to pass it as it is. We have certain elements of the bill that members of parliament will interrogate and say, we feel here we are overburdening, here we have over-allocated, here we have under-allocated. This one does not sit down with Kenyans. Kenyans are complaining that this is too much on them, we are dropping it, you know. So I don't think public lynching these members of parliament, yet we are the same people who gave them the job. They're in the middle of executing the job we trusted them with. Why would we again come out and start lynching them publicly as they execute what we trusted them to do?
All right. Muhia, clearly then this points to a lack of trust, essentially, in members of parliament and legislation altogether. What do you make of what Kennedy just said?
Yes, I think his point is somehow all over and somehow lost, because I think members of parliament are there to represent us as common mananchi. And where they are failing is that they don't understand that the people are speaking. And when people speak, you have to listen, because your work is to go and echo that in parliament. I think for the longest time in Kenyan politics, we've seen, we've had that trend of members of parliament, of people or people in power, telling people what to do instead of listening to people. And I think that is one of the narrative that the young people are trying to push, that it is about time that you listen to us and do things the way that they're supposed to be done. There's a lot of learning and unlearning that politicians need to do, and especially with the way that they conduct themselves. They have to listen to the people, go echo that in parliament, not turning it back. And then there's a thing that he said about this financial bill. Yes, we don't deny that it has some good things, but let's talk about the issue that he has brought up, because it's the one who has brought it up, about teachers being employed. Let's talk about teachers' pension. Do you know that there are some teachers who haven't received their pension, and also that pension that they're supposed to get in this financial bill, it is going to be taxed. Now, this thing that you're putting it, you're giving us a good thing, but then at the end of it, there is a bad thing about it. And that's why we are asking them to reject it, take it back to Parliament, come back with better structures. You understand? Because there's no way that you can employ all these teachers and at the end of the day their pay slip doesn't add up. Teachers have been on the streets every year asking for pay rise. Yet, members of Parliament, when it comes to pay rise, they just do it at a snap of a finger. I think these are the simple things that we are asking, that this should be fixed. They need to start listening to people, and they need to come up with structures that are better and favorable for the common mananchi.
We must take a break as we analyze what's making headlines of the daily. It's important to note, though, even as the government listens to the anti-generation and anti-finance bill protests, they keep saying that we have a government to run, and we have a financial year that begins in the next 7 days. And processes must take place. So what happens then? What are the solutions? What are the possible scenarios, even as the Finance Bill of 2024 enters that make or break stage? When we come back from that break, we're focusing on that unrelenting Gen Z revolution. What are the issues, first of all, as members of Parliament enter that committee of the whole House, where they can amend clause by clause the issues of the Finance Bill of 2024? What are the main issues here that need amendment? Do talk to us. The hashtag is New Dawn. Speak to us on X at K24 TV. Many thanks.
Everybody has got to learn how to put in some effort and some energy in order to make their dreams come to pass. Manage your resources, especially